Hello, Steve White, Trekway 89 for Steve Vats 89. Well, I just watched Season 1, Episode 10 of Strange New Worlds, The Quality of Mercy. It's the end of the season. Now, I was a bit bothered when I first saw the trailer for this and thought they were just doing a straight remake of Balance of Terror. It really bothered me, the idea of doing that. But they do that, but they do that in a different way, and it actually is interesting. Now, the episode starts off with Pike randomly meeting one of the cadets who in the future will die when there is the incident. Now, when he was first told about his future and they used, Klingon time crystals to do it, I thought it was a bad move. I thought it was a bad idea for the character. I didn't think it worked. And I thought it's ridiculous. He knows his future. He knows how to just avoid this incident, and it doesn't need to happen. Now, my understanding was he had retired at this point and Kirk had already taken over command of the Enterprise, because the first season of the original Star Trek starts a year into the 5-year mission. A lot of people don't realise this. I think the first pilot is close to the start of his command, but the first year of the season starts in the second year of the 5-year mission, which is why by the end they're well into the 4th or 5th year of the 5-year mission when they actually get to the end of the 3rd year of the show. A lot of people don't realise that also. But supposedly Pike retired, and then 6 months later this incident happened, and then we find out about it later in the show. But in this alternate reality, this reboot reality, the Prime universe, not the same as the original canon universe of the original series, Pike stays in command until for some reason he walks into this incident with the cadets and is injured, and then Kirk is supposed to take over at that point. But because Pike never allows himself to be injured, because he stops this from happening, he stays in command of the Enterprise and Kirk never gets command. So when they eventually end up encountering the Romulans, Pike's approach at trying to foster peace fails, whereas Kirk's destroying the Romulan ship and sending a message to the Romulans that the Federation is not to be effed with, causes the Romulans to believe that the Federation are weak and to declare war, basically. So that obviously has some very huge consequences. So basically, I didn't like that Pike was shown his future but yet seemed to think he couldn't change it. And I do like the fact they've given him a real reason not to change it now. But it still doesn't really hold water for me, because he doesn't have to die, he just has to retire when he retired in the original series. So Kirk can take over when he would have taken over, and basically everything should unfold like it did in the original series. And aside from 2 cadets not dying, who don't seem to affect the future, and him not having his ranch sold to someone else and someone else living there, I can't really see any other consequences of him living in a quiet retirement in order to allow the future to be saved by Captain Kirk. So I still don't think he has to allow himself to be injured and die and let those other cadets die, but I do see that he can't just sort of change the future and go on being the captain of the Enterprise, because he wasn't supposed to be the captain of the Enterprise. But all he has to do is retire, so yeah. Because they seem to be people who don't consider Strange New Worlds to be a reboot and don't acknowledge that it's based in the Prime universe, which is a different universe from the original universe, will try and make this canon and make it make sense, but it doesn't, like I said, because it's a year. Like they specifically state that incident was 6 months before this incident, which would make it 6 months into Kirk's 5-year mission. So yeah, it's a bit messy. Now, one of the things that we do learn in this is that Una was actually, because a lot of things we see in that future which are different. Una is a prisoner in a penal colony because she got caught out for lying about being genetically engineered and lying when she got applied to the Federation and everything. We see the cadets, the crew members who are going to get married at the start of the ship. Now the woman dies and Tomlinson lives. Spock is severely injured. He has his leg blown off. He is burnt on 40% of his remaining body and has radiation damage. And because he was down in the weapons, trying to restore the weapons. Because how Pike actually tries to foster peace is he says, instead of trying to kill each other, why don't we just pause for 2 hours, repair our ships, and go our separate ways? And while they're doing that, Spock was trying to repair the engines, the weapons, while Scotty, who we hear but we don't see, actually is repairing the engines. So they do have warp, they do get away. Because ultimately what happens is, after this 2 hours, the Predator and a whole fleet of Romulan ships show up and basically declare war because they see the Federation's weak. And they say, well, you attacked us first. And they show footage of the Romulan commander's ship attacking. And they basically force him to sacrifice himself because he was caught out and compromised the Romulans' sneak attack and all that. So he basically moves his ship out into the center and is destroyed. And then they declare war. The Enterprise gets away. They did briefly sort of hold off against the Romulans with a bunch of cargo ships or mining ships that were masquerading as Federation ships. But that bluff didn't last long and they were mostly destroyed. Pike and that got away. But obviously that showed him that he, couldn't stay in command of the Enterprise and in this sort of context had to die. So future Pike basically comes back at the end, says, hello, this is why you can't, change your future. You have to die basically for the universe to survive in that. At the end, we actually see Una being arrested for her lying to the Federation, and that is the cliffhanger for the episode. The thing that most bothered me about the episode, aside from the Prime Universe licensing, alternate universe reboot issues and canon violations and all that sort of stuff, is the fact they actually, instead of just writing a Styles in this universe, they turn Ortegas into Styles, where she becomes a bigot and she's just war-hungry and prejudiced against the Romulans, and then starts off being prejudiced against Spock. But when Spock agrees with her course of action, she does start to believe that maybe he's not one of them, even if, And one of the interesting things about the Romulans is they do, in this episode, they do have the next generation foreheads, which is interesting. Because we still don't know what the Klingons would look like in Strange New Worlds. Would they look like the movie Klingons, the next generation Klingons, which are pretty much the same, the original series Klingons that we see in Enterprise as well, or the Klingorks from Discovery? Because they showed Worf in Picard as a photo, and he looked like a regular Klingon. So I don't know how that's going to go. But the Romulans, they decided to go with the next generation look, which is kind of okay because it was a production upgrade, so there's no canon reason for future Romulan depictions of past Romulans to look like the ones in the original series. They don't really have to do that. And it wasn't a huge change anyway. It was just the the forehead with the lines, but yeah. So overall the episode was good. It's mostly a reboot of Balance of Terror, but they found a good reason to do it, and they did it in an interesting way. The battle scenes are good, the effects are good, the Enterprise is still too dark, but the Romulan ship, which again is still too dark as well, and has too much surface detail, which is all small metal panels, which just make the ship look the wrong scale, because you shouldn't be able to see that much detail, and it just makes it look really CGI, and same with the Enterprise. The flat surface where you really don't see the detail, just hints of it, really adds more to a feeling of scale. So they apparently didn't learn this when they were designing computer ships and CGI ships. So at least they made a couple of changes which I think worked. They made the Romulan ships, the engines, the buzzard nacelles things are actually like green, which kind of works with the Romulans. I've seen them depicted as blue a few times, but they were different colours in the original series, so that kind of works. The Romulan makeup, it kind of works. The set feels very much like the original set, the design, although it looks different, but it's got that basic same small central sort of design that they had. So overall, the pacing, the direction, the acting, everything's fine. It's just jarring in a way to sort of have to deal with it as a reboot, especially when some people don't acknowledge it as a reboot. They do mention the Kelvin in this episode, and they have established in Discovery that this show does take place in the Prime timeline, the Prime universe, which isn't just the Prime timeline. It's the Kelvin timeline in the Prime universe, and licensing wise, name wise, it is different from the original Star Trek series. So this is a reboot. It does exist in that other universe. This is just a further example of it by the canon things that don't match the timelines, the things and stuff like that. So if you can embrace it as a reboot, you can kind of almost enjoy it, but they still stick too much to original Star Trek aliens and stories, and they're not getting far enough away. They needed to do totally original new stories with new species and new aliens and new people and characters, and really separated themselves from the original series and Discovery to really be successful. And I feel as a series they've stuck too much to retreading things that we're familiar with, that just sort of alienates and makes things more complicated and harder to enjoy. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, comment, like. I just hope season 2 is better. It was okay, but I was a bit disappointed that it didn't go far enough away from the other shows.